Alright, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called To Catch a Thief, 1955. Giving it 3 out of 5 stars. Thought it was kind of slow and not one of Hitchcock's better films. Cary Grant, Grace Kelly, and Alfred Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief, colored by Technicolor and VistaVision motion picture high fidelity, excuse me. High fidelity. I'm looking at the movie poster. Three out of 5 stars. Not a great flick. Not one of Hitchcock's better ones. To Catch a Thief is a 1955 U.S. romantic thriller film directed by Alfred Hitchcock from a screenplay by John Michael Hayes, based on the 1952 novel of the same name by David Dodge. The film stars Cary Grant as a retired cat burglar who has to save his reformed reputation by catching an imposter preying on wealthy tourists, including an oil-rich widow and her daughter, played by Grace Kelly. On the French Riviera, the cinematography is great. The plot twists are pretty cool. The ending was decent, but the rest of the movie was pretty boring. Romance. And Grace Kelly doesn't even enter until halfway point in the movie. So the romance doesn't start until halfway in the movie. And the rest of the movie is just romance. There's not much going on. Retired jewel thief John the Cat Roby is suspected by the police in a string of burglaries on the French Riviera. When they come to his hilltop villa to question him, he slips their grasp and he heads to a restaurant owned by his friend Bartini. The restaurant's staff are members of Roby's old gang who have been paroled for their work in the French resistance during World War II. They are angry at Roby because they are all under suspicion as long as the new cat is alive. When the police arrived at the restaurant looking for Roby, Danielle, the daughter of the restaurant's wine steward, Fossard, spirits him to safety. She is a young woman who fancies him dearly. I guess she's a 19-year-old or 18-year-old French girl, maybe even younger. Roby realizes he can prove his innocence by catching the new cat in the act. He enlists the aids of an insurance man, H.H. Hewson, played by John Williams, who was in Dial M for Murder. This time he's a Lloyd's of London underwriter who reluctantly discloses a list of persons currently on the Riviera who own the most expensive jewelry. The U.S. tourist Jessie Stevens, a wealthy Nouveau niche widow, and her daughter Frances top the list. Roby strikes up a friendship with them. Frances feigns modesty at first, but kisses Roby at the end of the night as she retires to her room. Yeah, Grace Kelly can't get enough of Cary Grant. They kiss on the first day that they meet. Distributed by Paramount Pictures, release date August 3rd, 1955 in Los Angeles. Running time 106 minutes too long, 106, not 160. Running time. Country United States, languages English and French, oui oui. Budget of $2.5 million and a box office of $4.5 million in U.S. rentals and $8.75 million total. Not a bad return on investment. I don't know what the marketing cost was, but I would imagine that it's in 1955 dollars. It's very low. The day after the big kiss, Francis invites Roby to a swim at the beach, where Roby runs into Danielle, the underage French gal. He keeps up his cover of being a wealthy U.S. tourist despite Danielle's jealous barbs about his interest in Francis. Oh, we've got a cat fight going. Francis accompanies Roby to a villa where Roby suspects the new cat might break in. Francis reveals that she knows Roby's real identity. He initially denies it, but concedes it that evening when she has him invited to her room to watch a fireworks display. They kiss passionately. Yeah, they didn't have sex, but the fireworks are going off. The next morning, Jessie discovers her jewels are gone. Francis accuses Roby of using her as a distraction so he could steal her mother's jewelry. The police are called, but by the time they reach Jessie's room, Roby has disappeared. Okay, so much for that romance. Later, Roby, while stalking out in the state at night trying to catch the thief, is attacked by an unknown assailant. A second attacker raises a wrench and tries to kill Roby, but accidentally instead hits the first assailant, who falls off the state seawall into the water. When the police reach the body in the water, it turns out to be Fossard, the young French gal's dad. The police chief announces to the press that Fossard was the jewel thief, but as Roby points out privately in the chief's office, with Houston present, this would have been impossible because Fossard had a wooden leg and he could not climb on rooftops. As a consequence, Fossard's funeral is interrupted by Danielle's loud accusation that Roby is responsible for her father's death. Why is she desecrating her father's funeral? Outside the graveyard, Frances apologizes to Roby, and she confesses her love, and she won't let him go away. Roby asks Frances to arrange his attendance at a fancy masquerade ball where he believes the cat will strike again. Roby accompanies Frances to the ball, dressed as a masked Moor. He's in blackface. The police hover nearby when Jessie addresses the Moor as John and asks him to go and get her heart pills. The authorities are topped off as to his identity. Upon the masked Moor's return, the police wait as he and Frances dance together all night. When the masked Moor accompanies Frances to her room, he removes the mask, and it turns out to be Houston, who switched places with Roby to conceal the latter's exit. Upstairs, the cat burglar silently cleans out several jewel boxes. Roby lurks on the rooftop, and his patience is finally rewarded when he spots a figure in black, whom he recognizes as Danielle, Fossard's daughter. Here's the plot twist here. Pretty cool. I would have never suspected Danielle. The police throw a spotlight on him, and they demand that he halt, giving Danielle the chance to slip away. Roby flees as they shoot at him, and he manages to corner his foe with jewels in hand. She loses her footing on the roof, and she starts to fall, but Roby grabs her hand in the last second. While she hangs in his grasp, he forces her to confess to the police and to admit that Bertani was behind the thefts. Roby speeds back to the villa. Frances follows to convince him that she has a place in his life. Pretty funny ending. Not bad. Grace Kelly plays Frances Stevens. Grace Kelly and Cary Grant are together in a lot of scenes towards the end, but no scenes in the beginning. Alfred Hitchcock makes a signature cameo apparently 10 minutes into the film, approximately 10 minutes in the film, I should say, as a bus passenger sitting next to Cary Grant and a caged pair of birds. To Catch a Thief was the director's first film of 5 made using the VistaVision widescreen process, and the last of 3 Hitchcock films with Grace Kelly. The film was the penultimate collaboration with Cary Grant. Only North by Northwest 1959 followed. It is also about a man with a mistaken identity who goes on a breakneck adventure to prove his innocence. The costumes were by Edith Head, including Kelly's memorable gold lame gown for the film's costume ball. What an amazing gown Grace Kelly wears in this movie. The car driven by Grace Kelly was a metallic blue 1953 Sunbeam Alpine MK1. To Catch a Thief was filmed largely in the Paramount Studios, Hollywood, California, and on location in the Alps Maritimes of southeastern France on the Mediterranean coast. What a great cinematography that was of Francais in 1955. Great views. It's like going on a European vacation, but not having to pay $4,000. It included the resorts of Cannes, Nice, Villefranche-sur-Mer, Saint-Genest, and Torrets-sur-Loup. Crucial to the film's success and shooting on location was the presence of unit production manager C.O. Doc Erickson. He had developed a reputation for his work on prior Paramount films that had relied on a great amount of location photography, such as Shane, 1953, and Secret of the Incas, 1954. Erickson thoroughly researched the logistics of shooting in the south of France, and he communicated with Bill Mole, the production manager, on Little Boy Lost, 1953. To Catch a Thief is the only Hitchcock film released by Paramount that is still owned and controlled by the company. The other 5 films made at Paramount: Rear Window, The Trouble with Harry, The Man Who Knew Too Much, Vertigo, and Psycho each passed from the studio to his personal ownership 8 years after the date of their theatrical release under the conditions of his contract. Those 5 are currently distributed by Universal Studios. Okay, nobody in the chat room today. There's a drive-in advertisement. Encina? Now ends Sunday. First run showing. Advanced prices, adults 85 cents, children under 10 free. This is the drive-in ad. Makes you feel you're actually on the Riviera. Good point. The blazing talents of 2 stars in the danger affair of the year. Paramount presents Cary Grant playing with fire and Grace Kelly ready to flame. Alfred Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief. The film drew mixed reviews from critics, with some enjoying Grant and Kelly in the lead roles, as well as the French Riviera setting, while others expressed disappointment at the lack of suspense compared to earlier Hitchcock films, which is what I alluded to, the utter boredom of sitting through a 1 hour, 50 minutes movie, and there's not much going on. Bosley Crowther of the New York Times wrote in a positive review that the film comes off completely as a hit in the old Hitchcock style. Mr. Grant and Miss Kelly do grandly, especially in one sly seduction scene. Variety wrote that while the film was not the suspense piece one usually associated with the Alfred Hitchcock name, it was strong on sight and performance values, though it had some plot weaknesses, and it is not as smooth in the unfolding as one might expect from an upper A presentation. I was disappointed. Harrison's reports wrote, Alfred Hitchcock has not endowed the action with as much suspense as one might expect in a picture produced and directed by him. Nevertheless, it's a story of a one-time jewel robber who sets out to establish his innocence by catching a thief who was using his technique is tight and swiftly paced and constantly offers dramatic and comical developments. Richard L. Coe of the Washington Post called it one of those deluxe pictures in which everyone lives in glorious, workless luxury on the French Riviera, looks wonderful, speaks amusingly, and is unconcerned with transit strikes or hurricanes. I loved every minute of it. Philip K. Schauer of the Los Angeles Times was also positive, calling Grant and Kelly ideal in the romantic leads and the dialogue daring but delightful, adding above all, there is a spell of the French Riviera, a laissez-faire thing that apparently captivated the director as much as it will audiences in the soft, beguiling hues of its Technicolor and VistaVision. John McCartan of the New Yorker dismissed the film as an Alfred Hitchcock picture that makes you wonder what has happened to the man. As the Iris, Grace Kelly is very pretty. She does not, presumably, try to act. The Monthly Film Bulletin wrote, even a comedy thriller needs considerably more in the way of plain excitement and tension than To Catch a Thief provides, and Hitchcock's celebrated habit of playing tricks with the audience seemed a poor substitute for the real thing. The Guardian called the film a thorough disappointment, writing that Hitchcock had failed so completely that one can only wonder if, in this tale of high-class burglary of the Côte d'Azur, he has not altogether abandoned his devotion to tension. Certainly the whodunit element in this film is remarkably slack. The unmasking of the master criminal, which is the climax of the story, comes as mildly as bread and milk. Francois Truffaut wrote, To Catch a Thief completely satisfies all Hitchcock fans, the snobbiest and the most ordinary, and still it manages to be one of the most cynical films Hitchcock has ever made. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 92% based on reviews from 53 critics, with an average rating of 7.9 out of 10, which is huge. With the critical consensus reading, it may occasionally be guilty of coasting on pure charm, but To Catch a Thief has it in spades, as well as a pair of perfectly matched stars in Cary Grant and Grace Kelly. Robert Burks won the Academy Award for Best Cinematography, while Hal Piera, Joseph McMillan Johnson, Samuel M. Comer, and Arthur Krams were nominated for Best Art Direction, and Edith Head was nominated for Best Costume Design. In 2002, American Film Institute included the film in AFI's 100 Years, 100 Passions at number 46. In May 2018, it was announced that Viacom was set to adopt the film as a Spanish language television series. It was launched in October 2019 as Atrapa a un Ladrón. To Catch a Thief, 1955, rated PG, 1 hour 46 minutes. Gets a 1.4 out of 10 on IMDb, 83,000 ratings. In terms of popularity, it is ranked 3,630, up 711. A retired jewel thief sets out to prove his innocence after being suspected of returning to his former occupation. I guess what people want to see the French Riviera and Grace Kelly in that amazing gold dress. Is that the reason why people watch this? I mean, there's not really much substance to it, in my view. All right, more like this: The Man Who Knew Too Much, Dial M for Murder, Notorious, and Rope. Rope is my all-time favorite Hitchcock movie. Rope gets a 7.9. This one gets a 7.4. Cary Grant had announced his retirement from acting in February 1953, stating that since the rise of method actors like Marlon Brando, most people were no longer interested in seeing him. He was also angry at the way Sir Charles Chaplin had been treated by the House Un-American Activities Committee. He was lured out of his retirement to make this movie and thereafter continued acting for a further 11 years. John says he'll leave his clothes with Danielle, but later, when he's at the flower market, he's in the same clothes. However, it's quite likely that he met up with her before going to the market, and this meeting was simply omitted, as it contributes nothing else to the story. This is the only plausible explanation, since he was unlikely to be this is the only plausible explanation, since he was unlikely to be concealing money in his swimming trunks earlier, and it's improbable that he walked the 20 miles from Cannes to Nice for the meeting barefoot in just his trunks. All right. So I didn't get to too many movie reviews today, this weekend, only two. I fell asleep through The Specialist, thinking that it was going to be another boring Karate Man thing. And I slept for 12 hours. Then I woke up and finished The Specialist, which was a better movie towards the end, by the way. Uh, Kind of similar to how this movie plays out. One of the reviewers didn't like the ending, thought it was anticlimactic. I thought the ending was pretty decent. I mean, that wasn't the only part that comprised the ending. Figuring out who the cat was, but it's kind of towards the end. Francis Stevens is quoted as saying, "Mother, the book you're reading is upside down." So that's a Grace Kelly quote. The opening title sequence shows a window of a travel agent with the text of the title superimposed. The bottom of the window is not quite horizontal because the window is seen from a slight angle to perpendicular. The text of the titles is given slight parallel what? Parallelogram distortion, so the bottom line of text is parallel to the windowsill, and therefore it is not horizontal and parallel with the film frame. This was edited into Histories du Cinéma sur le Cinéma 1994, which I have seen. Why why are Truffaut and Godard so crazy about this movie? Is it the cinematography? All right. Smarty Sia wrote a review on IMDb dated January 30th, 2004. This is a much more flattering review. An 8 out of 10. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. The title of the review on IMDb is "Good Stuff All Around," a bit of departure for Alfred Hitchcock, somewhat lighter and with less of the trademark suspense. Well, that's an understatement. Thoroughly enjoyable, though. Cary Grant was playing Cary Grant by this time, and no one could do it better. And Grace Kelly, what eye candy. The snappy dialogue with the sexual innuendo was done perfectly. And huge kudos to Bridget Alber, who was gorgeous and very good. An interesting aside was that Grant's character, while pretending to be someone else, claimed to have been a U.S. circus acrobat, which Grant sort of was in early life, albeit English, not U.S. Grant, with his accent, could really never be mistaken for a U.S. citizen, even though he usually played one. Although it was a little eerie to see Grace Kelly driving so fast on those French Riviera cliffside roads in light of what happened to her later. Of course, she obviously wasn't doing so. They were using back projection. Anyway, this film is a must-see for fans of Hitchcock, Kelly, or Grant. Grade A. All right. So that's the end of my review. I didn't take up too much of your time on this one or the previous one. So let's go down my list. We'll make it a 30-minute video. First on the list is The Dick Tracy Show, 1961. Second on the list is Assassins, 1995. And number 3 is The Mummy, 1932. So I'll try to get to The Dick Tracy Show on Monday. Or maybe I can wake up early and watch a little bit, post my review. I do have to update my list with some more George Kennedy films from the late 80s onward. So that'll be my chore tomorrow. I started to work on it a little bit last Sunday, and I didn't get very far because my son was I had my son on Sunday, and I didn't really wake up too early, so I'm going to try to do that. Wake up super early tomorrow morning and get to my movies list. Maybe get Dick Tracy show from 1961 up on YouTube later.